From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired!
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Eric Ham, and we're live in Washington, D.C. The race for the White House is just 22 days away. Who's up and who's down? We'll take you through it all, but first, a look at the latest headlines. China begins large-scale military drills surrounding Taiwan just days after the island celebrated its National Day. Chinese warships and planes violate Taiwan's maritime and air zone multiple times. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses North Korea of sending its troops to fight on behalf of Russia. President Zelensky warns North Korea's involvement could lead to a bigger war. A U.S. Army doctor says Vice President Kamala Harris is in excellent health as a presidential candidate. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris accuses Donald Trump of withholding his medical records and challenges him to provide a similar update. Mexico's National Guard uncovers 5 beheaded bodies in the western state of Jalisco. This just days after the decapitation of a mayor from the state of Guerrero sparked massive protests. And torrential rain causes flooding in all 23 provinces in Chad. At least 3.5 million people have been affected by floods in the Central African nation. We begin with the race for the White House. In California, police arrested an armed man at Donald Trump's rally in Coachella Valley on Saturday. The Riverside County Sheriff said the suspect, identified as 49-year-old Vim Miller, was armed with a shotgun, a handgun, high-capacity magazines, and a cache of fake passports and driver's licenses. The suspect was booked on charges of possessing a loaded firearm but was released on a $5,000 bond and has to appear in court on January 2nd of next year. The local sheriff said the actions taken by his department thwarted another potential assassination attempt on the former president.
I am glad that we're not talking about this after we shot him. We get to talk about it before, and no matter what, it's all going to be speculation about what his intentions were getting there. What we do know is he showed up with multiple passports with different names, an unregistered vehicle with fake license plate, and loaded firearms. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt.
Meanwhile, the Secret Service and federal agencies disagree that the suspect posed any threat to the rally or Donald Trump. Speaking to media outlets, the Federal Bureau of Investigation said the suspect was a member of far-right anti-government groups. In a joint statement with the Secret Service, the FBI said the suspect posed no threat to Donald Trump and that the former president was never in any danger. However, the Riverside County Sheriff continues to stand by his assessment of thwarting another assassination attempt.
I certainly wouldn't want to be saying after the fact that I wish we would have done something to prevent that shooting. And there is absolutely no way that any of us are going to truly know what was in his head. I can tell you that none of the other probably 50,000 people that showed up yesterday for that event brought multiple passports with different names and guns. If we are that politically lost that we have lost sight of common sense and reality and reason, that we can't say that, holy crap, what did he show up with all of that stuff for and loaded guns, and I'm going to be accused of being dramatic? We have a serious, serious problem in this country, because this is common sense and reason.
Now, already, Donald Trump has survived 2 assassination attempts this year. The first at a rally in Pennsylvania in July, then in September while playing golf in Florida. The attempts on his life are the latest in a long history of assassination attempts on American presidents. 4 presidents, including Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, William McKinley, and John F. Kennedy, have been assassinated. Meanwhile, Donald Trump and Theodore Roosevelt were both shot when they were not presidents, while Ronald Reagan is the only president to get shot and survive while in office. Secret Service has also been involved in foiling assassination plots against at least 13 other presidents. However, unlike Donald Trump, no former president has ever faced multiple assassination attempts. The Secret Service and federal agencies are being questioned by Congress on the multiple security lapses involving Donald Trump. Despite the Republican presidential nominee security detail being beefed up, Donald Trump continues to face serious threats to his life. And staying with the U.S. presidential election, former President Barack Obama has opened a can of worms after he lectured black men to vote for Kamala Harris while speaking in Pennsylvania last week. America's first black president had some frank discussions with young black voters who could play a crucial role in this year's election. Asking black men to accept the entry of women, particularly women of color, in corridors of power, Barack Obama's words managed to touch a raw nerve. Though most black men agreed to President Obama's sentiments, some made some rather strong objections. Our next report brings you more.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama has found himself on the wrong side of American voters, particularly black men. Last week, the 44th President of America gave a blistering performance in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Speaking in the swing state, Obama called on men and black men to vote for Kamala Harris.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. I've noticed this especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior, the bullying and the putting people down, is a sign of strength. And I am here to tell you that is not what real strength is. Real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. That is what we should want for our daughters and for our sons, and that is what I want to see in a president of the United States of America.
And that wasn't it. As Barack Obama continued to open a bigger can of worms after addressing the crowds from the podium, he spoke to a group of black men separately.
How are you?
He urged them to embrace women in power and pick Kamala Harris as their next president.
I'm going to go ahead and just speak some truths, if you don't mind. Yes. Because my understanding, based on reports I'm getting from campaigns and communities, is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. And you're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly now, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. And you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that.
But the lecturing didn't stop there. As Barack Obama put on a stern fatherly act, he asked black men to learn from black women, whom the former president claims are against Donald Trump.
Because the women in our lives have been getting our backs this entire time. They've been raising us and working and having our backs. And when we get in trouble, when the system's not working for us, they're the ones who are out there marching and protesting. And so now you're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you? That's not acceptable. That's not, this shouldn't even be a question.
What Obama meant was that the Democratic Party is seeing a slump in support for Kamala Harris among black men, and that it was a major concern in the upcoming presidential election. What started out as a fatherly lecture came back to bite back Obama. Black men took to social media to share their frustration. While some cracked jokes about the former president, others told him to get lost and go back to his mansion. Most users said that they did not need anyone to tell them whom they should be voting for. Some black men took pot shots at Barack Obama. One user even said that Obama acted like a black father himself by disappearing for years and only coming back when he had the authority. Many accused Obama, who was also the first black American president, of doing nothing for the black community. Barack Obama wanted to gather more support for Vice President Kamala Harris, but he's managed to do the opposite. Recent polls show that not just black men and black voters, but even Latin Americans are pivoting towards Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. Support for the Republican candidate among black voters is at an all-time high in over a decade. Meanwhile, black support for the Democrats has fallen by 14%. Among Hispanic voters, Donald Trump is seeing a rise among Latino men, while Hispanic women still support Kamala Harris in large numbers. But Trump is trying to change the tide. He knows that he's growing popular among the Hispanic community. And this is despite the Republican frequently calling Latino countries a shithole while terming Hispanic migrants as criminals and rapists. Identity and race politics is peaking in the United States. The Democrats are reaching out to people of color, and so is Donald Trump. He already enjoys the support of white male voters by an overwhelming number. While the vice president enjoys support from women and women of color. After migration, economy, and abortion, race has made an entry in the race for the White House.
And now turning to the Middle East. Over the weekend, a drone strike by Hezbollah targeted an Israeli military base about 30 miles south of Haifa. The devastating attack left 4 Israeli soldiers dead and over 60 wounded.
It was a difficult scene. The impact of the drone caused injuries due to the blast and shrapnel, serious injuries. The injured needed life-saving treatment and blockages of blood vessels, life-saving medical treatment, and were quickly evacuated to the hospitals.
Now, what is particularly alarming is that one of the drones managed to bypass Israel's advanced air defense systems. Several reports noted that while 2 drones were in fact launched, one was intercepted while the second one made it through, hitting the Golani Brigade's training camp and causing significant damage. Israel's military spokesperson vowed a full investigation to understand how this breach occurred, adding that Israel must urgently improve its aerial defenses.
We are managing the incident. We will study and investigate the incident and how a drone infiltrates without alerts and strikes the base. The threat of drones is a threat we have been dealing with since the beginning of the war. We are required to bring about better protection. We will investigate this incident, learn, and improve. Our mission is to better protect our soldiers and citizens of Israel.
Hezbollah's attack comes in retaliation to Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon's capital, Beirut, which killed at least 22 people and injured more than 100 over the weekend. After hitting the Israeli army base, Hezbollah warned that this was just the beginning of their offensive if Israel continues attacking Lebanon.
Striking Tel Aviv is just the beginning, and what has happened in recent days in Haifa and Acre and Nahariya and Safe confirms that we are still at the beginning. To the enemy, I say, you have only seen a little so far. Our absolute priority now is to defeat the enemy and forcefully compel them to stop the aggression. Nevertheless, any internal or external political effort to achieve a ceasefire is welcome, as long as it aligns with our comprehensive vision for the battle, its conditions, and its outcomes. Within this vision, we firmly uphold national unity and internal solidarity.
Meanwhile, the United States is stepping up its support for Israel, announcing the deployment of the terminal high-altitude air defense systems capable of intercepting ballistic missiles to bolster Israel's defenses. However, the exact timeline for when it will arrive remains unclear.
Why did you decide to give the permission for the THAAD to be deployed in Israel?
To defend Israel.
Hezbollah is threatening more strikes, and Israeli forces continue to expand their operations into Lebanon, which suggests there's no end in sight to the ongoing conflict. And moving to the Korean Peninsula, North Korea has ordered its troops along the border with South Korea to stand ready to fire if given the command. The development comes after North Korea claimed that South Korea flew drones inside its territory.
Of Democratic People's Republic of Korea Ministry of National Defense announced that General Staff of the Korean People's Army issued an order to the combined artillery units along the border and the units taking on an important task to get ready to open fire.
Responding to North Korea's wartime readiness order, the South Korean military said they are fully prepared to respond to any potential provocations.
North Korea yesterday reported on the General Staff of the Korean People's Army, issuing an operational reserve order for full-scale firing readiness along the border. Our military is closely monitoring North Korean military movements and is fully prepared to respond to any potential provocations.
South Korea also said it suspects North Korea is in fact preparing to blow up cross-border roads that link the two countries and pass through their heavily militarized border.
We have identified signs of them working behind screened fences. We also identified them preparing to destroy roads. I believe that North Korea can destroy them as soon as today. We think there are possibilities of North Korea carrying out space rocket launch, performative destruction of the inter-Korean roads, or small-scale provocations. We are preparing to respond to all such possible scenarios.
Tensions between the two neighbors escalated after North Korea began sending thousands of trash-filled balloons across the border in May. This was widely seen as Pyongyang's show of anger at South Korea's joint military drills with the United States. Meanwhile, North Korea claimed that Seoul was sending drones over its capital, Pyongyang, to drop leaflets denouncing Kim Jong-un. North Korea claimed that South Korea sent drones over Pyongyang 3 times just this month. Amid this exchange of claims and counterclaims, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's sister has threatened South Korea with horrible consequences unless they stop sending the drones.
The moment that a drone of the Republic of Korea is discovered in the sky over our capital city once again will certainly lead to a horrible disaster. Personally, I wish that such a thing will not happen.
Now, all these incidents have added to rising tensions along the Korean border, and one misfire could push the heavily militarized zone to the brink of war. And finally, from the serenity of the Caribbean, the beautiful French island of Martinique has been gripped by violent protests. Struggling with high cost of living, residents are demanding immediate action as food prices soar 40% higher than mainland France. What started as peaceful demonstrations has now escalated into looting, arson, and clashes with police. In fact, one protester was shot and killed, forcing authorities to impose an island-wide curfew. But the protests rage on as the people demand affordable prices for basic necessities. Here's our final story with more.
In Martinique, life has taken a sharp turn. The small sun-soaked island in the French Caribbean is known for its beautiful beaches. But lately, protests are taking over this French nation. And not the quiet, peaceful kind either. It's been weeks of people out in full force showing anger against the French government. They've been burning barricades, blocking roads, and clashing with the police. The reason? Life has simply become too expensive. It all started in September when residents began protesting the high cost of food and basic necessities. They complained of paying at least 40% more for groceries than people do in mainland France.
I don't have much more to say than we can't make ends meet. When I used to go in the shop opposite, it used to take me half an hour to do my shopping. Now it takes me 2 hours in a shop to buy just a few things in order to choose the cheapest. I don't know. We are bound to die, I think.
But by the middle of the last week, things took a dangerous turn. Protesters set up barricades and in some areas, looting began. In one town, a man was shot dead during a night of chaos. His death seemed to pour fuel on an already blazing fire. The protests flared back up, this time fiercer than before. Fort de France, the capital, was like a war zone, with thick smoke rising from the streets and clashes between protesters and police. There were scenes of chaos, cars set ablaze, streets filled with shouting, and in the background, the crackle of burning debris.
Unions don't follow the movement. The unions do not try to do something so that the whole population may go on strike in order to see how many people are here. It is not enough faced with these police who come and throw tear gas at us all the time.
The local authorities knew they had to act and fast. The island's prefect declared a curfew from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., hoping to calm things down. They banned all protests and gatherings till the 14th of October. But still, the unrest simmered. People were angry, and no amount of curfews or bans was going to quiet that rage.
Of course, we have recovered and now have full control of the airport platform. This is fundamental. Reinforcements have been sent, or will be sent, and we are also working with the judicial authorities to bring a number of individuals to justice.
The protest reached a dramatic peak when a group stormed the runway of Martinique's international airport. Flights had to be redirected to the nearby airport in Guadeloupe, and hundreds of passengers were stranded.
What happened tonight in relation to the repression of Mr. Bouvier, his agents. Today we did this, you saw, you filmed, we are peaceful. Mr. Bouvier, prefect of Martinique, sent the anti-riot police in. We're not the bad guys. He let the CRS-8 in for what? For this? No.
With protests taking such a dramatic turn, it was clear that this was more than just about high prices. The people of Martinique felt abandoned, left to struggle while their mainland French counterparts enjoy a lower cost of living. The Assembly for the Protection of Afro-Caribbean Peoples and Resources, the group leading the protest, demanded that prices on the island be aligned with those in mainland France.
If he takes the time to establish a constructive dialogue and to really get involved in the decisions and debates that will lead to real changes for our territories, including changes to the statutes, well, we'll see. You have to give the whole thing a chance.
For now, life in Martinique is anything but calm. Protests rage on, and the fires of discontent are burning as hot as ever. Everyone is waiting, hoping maybe for the government to step in and make things right. But until that happens, the island remains in turmoil, its people desperate for change.
That does it for us today. We thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to having you with us again tomorrow. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired! I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Firstpost decodes the U.S. election, explains how America chooses its president. Your primer on the race to the White House. Everything you need to know about how America votes and its global implications. U.S. Election Explained. Every Monday and Thursday only on Firstpost.
Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gasheen Garland and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, we bring you the top 50 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. Our top focus comes in from